Hey guys, and thanks so much for tuning in to this week's Original Strength podcast. We are joined today by a very special guest, Mr. Shawn Charlebois, all the way up in Canada. And the reason I wanted to have Shawn on the show is, well, him and I seem to have a lot in common. He is a strength coach, but he has a lot of the same ideas about fitness and health and movement as I do, but we also share a similar past. Anyway, I'm going to let Shawn tell you about that instead of me. But Shawn, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Tim. Appreciate it.
So Shawn, I found out about just a little bit about your past. You used to be a correction officer, and you made a big shift in your life to not be a correction officer, to become a strength coach. Can you tell me about that?
That is quite the story. But yes, I was a former corrections officer for about 8 years with the government of Ontario. And anytime I talk about this, I always refer to that specific time in my life as my true education. You know, I went to post-secondary, I went to college, but that time in my life was my true education. So for the first 2 years, it was really, really tricky. I was a young man trying to find myself and trying to see if this was the right fit for me. And I was going through a lot of personal bad things like breakups and just personal stuff at that time. So it was a very, very challenging time. And then I got my momentum a bit. Year 3 and 4, it was good. I was started to come to grips with it. Said, okay, maybe this will work out for me. And then year 5, I had an epiphany on a night shift. I was doing my watch tours. It was like checking on the well-being of the inmates, and nothing happens much in the nighttime when they're all locked up. So I was doing a tour, and I was checking on their well-being, and then it just hit me with a ton of bricks. I just had that question in my soul that, is this it? And then the very, very next step I took, every ounce of my being said, no, this is not it. And by the time I finished my tour, all I could think about was health, fitness, muscles, strength, all these things that I kind of grew up with and I've always just been passionate about. And then when I was done the tour, I went into the control module, talked to my partner and said, I think I had an epiphany. I go, I'm not going to retire from here anymore. I'm going to be a trainer. I'm going to be a coach. And he looked at me. He knew I was serious. He knew I was dead serious. And he said, good for you. So the next 3 years, I took courses. I educated myself. I actively learned as much as I possibly could. And I just slowly transitioned. I met my wife in the year 8. And then finally, thankfully, with her support, I was able to successfully transition, and it was very, very challenging. I learned a great deal from that, but I was able to make that positive switch, and I'm so grateful that I had, because it's been a wild ride, but I learned a lot at the jail, and I learned a lot about what I didn't want in my life, and that's basically the big message there, right?
So you said it was very challenging to make the switch. Can you expand upon that just a little bit? Like what were the hurdles for making that switch?
Well, first off, I think it's with a confidence thing for anybody is, can I make this? Can these thoughts, this image come to fruition? And everybody around you, like, people don't like it when somebody tries to go on a different route, right? Everybody around you, they had the best intentions, but everybody around me was like, think about the pension. You really shouldn't quit. Think about what you're leaving behind. Like, it's dangerous. You've seen other people try new things and they're back. Look at so-and-so, they came back. So, and I genuinely mean it. Like, they had my best intent. They were speaking from the heart, but their own fear was sort of seeping into me. So that was a big challenge in and of itself. But again, thankfully, my wife was able to sort of look at me when it came down to deciding. She said, are you ever going back? I said, I don't plan on it. She goes, then you have to quit. Don't take a leave. Don't do anything like that. Jump in with both feet. We'll be fine. The other thing is, it's just a networking thing. Like, I was able to do some training a little bit part-time when I was still at the jail, but it never really made sense. Like, when I was at the jail, like, as you can imagine, it's a pretty, like, negative environment, right? Like, as best, even though you can be a positive person, but it's a pretty negative environment. And then the switch side, I was also trying to be this like positive role model and like this coach. And the two worlds didn't really work. Like I was also on shift work, so it was always messing with my clock, and it was kind of weird. So that was challenging as well. But moving to Barrie, I'm not really originally from here, so as you can imagine, you're starting very, very fresh. No one knows you, and it's just basically like sink or swim. Like you're either going to make it or you're not, and that's really quite literally what happened. There was a few months when I did get my gym and I started training after I basically ran out of a little bit of the pension that I did get. That money was starting to dwindle. And I remember looking at my wife about 6 months in and just almost pulling my hair out saying, like, I can't work any harder. I don't know if this is going to work. And she was crying, and I was pretty emotional. I was pretty upset. And the very next day, somebody contacted me to start renting from me. And she sort of helped me out for about 3 months to get back on my feet, and everything started. I was like, whew, thank you. But you get tested. You get tested in more ways than one. And it's I've never worked so hard in my life. I've had a lot of jobs, but I've never worked so hard as I have been in this industry. And I'm still working hard, but those first few years, man, wow, it's stressful for sure.
No, I get it. Yeah, I was so fascinated about your story with being a correction officer, because I was a firefighter for 12 years, and that was it was shift work. It's not that it was a negative environment as much as it was negative for me.
Right.
It did not fit with me. So what happened with me was, it was a cool job. It was like a superhero type job, and it had all this adventure in it, which was great until I had a baby. And then all of a sudden, I no longer enjoyed putting myself in like harmful, dangerous situations, because I was climbing up during a thunderstorm one day, on a house was on fire, and I was laddering the roof of the house, and it was a 2-story house, and I had 70 pounds of gear on my back, and I'm climbing up this ladder, and every time in a thunderstorm, and every time I took a step on the ladder, the aluminum ladder was sliding against the aluminum gutter. And all I could think about was my newborn baby at the house.
Yeah.
So every time I stepped forward, all I could think about was my kid. And from that day on, I no longer wanted to be a firefighter. Like, something just happened on the way up that ladder where I was like, this is not for me anymore.
Yeah. That's wild, eh? Because probably just like me, like, you knew it like you knew the back of your hand. Like there was something there that was really, really powerful. It was I don't think everybody experiences that, and that's a different conversation, I guess. But that feeling is hard to describe to people when you're like, oh yeah, like it's done. It's a different direction. Yeah.
So I was probably there. That may have been my 3rd or 4th year, maybe, before, and I was there for 12 years. So, and what ended up happening with me was that I realized, I don't know, maybe 2 years before I left the department, I realized that I felt great on the days that I wasn't there, and I felt like it was raining in my head, or there was always clouds. I was so miserable on the days I was at work, and I was like, man, this sucks.
Well, Tim, that's another one that we have in common, and unfortunately, I still have some friends that do the job, and you need good people doing the job. So like I'm grateful to be out of it, but it's not uncommon to say, oh yeah, that last day off, you fall into a depression. And it's not even a joke. It's like you legitimately get depressed. Hey, yeah, once you get back into the groove, you sort of like, it becomes normal and you sort of cope with it. But 100%, the final day off before returning was, you get depressed, completely depressed. And it sucks.
Absolutely.
It's a very sad thing. Very sad.
Yes, I would go through this cycle of depression every, it was a 9-day cycle, and I would just sink to the lowest thing on my last day off, to just being miserable the next day on.
Yeah.
And then I would eventually work myself out of it, but it was always this up and down, up and down. And I was like, this is not cool.
That can take a big toll too, right? And it just gets to the point where you question, you go, all right, well, do I want to live like this? Is this what I want? Do I want to tolerate this anymore? I know I can do it. I don't want to do it though. That's the difference, right? So,
Well, that's the thing. Like, yeah, you can endure stuff and be miserable, but if you don't have to, and if you're supposed to do something else, like there also becomes this thing where I'm supposed to do something else, and it's not this.
yeah, exactly. And that's another thing I just find it so interesting because like I wrote a couple of books. Not that I really want to bring that up, but like that is that was a big thing in the beginning of my first book. I was questioning a lot of like, well, why aren't more people passionate about something, or why doesn't more people get that bolt of lightning feeling? And is it okay to want more? Or should I endure this? Is it greedy to want more and pursue like greatness, if you will, or something that's more meaningful to you? And I was really can the world accommodate everybody doing that? Probably not. So I don't know. Like, I don't know what your thoughts are on that, or if you wanted to take it in that direction. But
That's a great, so it's weird, right? So my parents, they had my entire life, they had the same job, which is rare now for someone to spend 30 years with the same job. That's kind of like a dinosaur in today's world. But
yeah,
my first job out of college, I was a statistician working for a telephone company.
oh, good.
And within the first month, I was completely miserable. And all I knew is that my parents had a job for 30 years. And I was convinced that I was going to suffer for at this job for 30 years within
Yeah,
a month of, leaving college.
yeah,
Fortunately, that telephone company got bought out and had a massive layoff. Um, which is where my true education started.
there you go.
Which, man, I learned so much about myself when I was just kicked out. But yeah, so I don't know if the world could accommodate people, pursuing their passion, but I know that people are made to pursue their passion. So I have to believe that there has to be a way where the world could accommodate it, right? Because we're all so different. There are going to be some people that love to do the thing that you hate to do.
Yeah, yep.
You know what I mean? And they would do it so well. You know,
But would you say that as a career though too, or just in general? Because I know people who, I don't know, would say maybe would, for lack of a better term, suffer through their job per se. But Thursday nights they get together with their guys and they play music or something, or they have something that they really speaks to them, or maybe it's dancing for some, or maybe it's art for somebody else, and like they still have their passion. They just they maybe can't do it as a career. I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe everybody could.
I I have to believe or at least hope that life is bigger than Thursday night every week, waiting for that to come around. So I do like, and now some of it could be internal, like discovering who you are, and then no matter what you're doing, you're happy doing it, which that could be a big part of it. But still, I don't know. There's got to be something that only Sean can do the way Sean can do it, and Sean can make a living doing it because he's passionate about it and because it is what he's supposed to do. So there's that romantic side of me that thinks, yeah, why not for everybody? Um, I don't know.
Yeah, it's good. It's certainly a good thing to believe in. It's yeah, I think it's great. It's certainly something worth encouraging people to pursue things is needed, very very much needed, right?
Well, so I think that it's about the pursuit, though. Like whether or not we get there, if we're
Mm.
pursuing it, we're living,
Yep.
right? Life is in the pursuit. If we never pursue it, well, then you're just going to be miserable anyway. I mean,
Yep.
what's the difference? But
Absolutely.
if you get to pursue something, well, that's going to put a little fuel in your fire, man. So even if it doesn't turn out, at least you were excited about the adventure.
For sure. That's a big thing. That exact saying that you said is my approach on and my sort of my issue with dare I say goal setting in the in the industry, in the fitness industry, I try to encourage people to focus on the process as much as possible, because the process, like you said, is basically life. If you can integrate sort of the proper or improved habits and behaviors into your life, whether it's training or eating or just a better mindset, you're living the process. And yeah, you're going to make some momentum and you're going to get some gains and this and that. But goals for me are always the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Okay, you might get there. Or are you magically happy now? Maybe not. Like it's just, I wrestle with these things. I really, really do. And I try to convey the best message possible. And it's challenging because marketing's a bitch, and sometimes the messages are just, they're not marketable, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. But I'm never gonna quote unquote sort of sell out. But I don't know. What do you think of that? Does any of that make sense, Tim? Or?
Yeah, so man, you said a lot there, and these are just my thoughts, like but I think the problem with goals for a lot of people is if they achieve them, the problem comes up to be, well, now what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I've never seen a goal magically solve anyone's problems or like change their life. I mean, I guess it could, but I'm just familiar with, well, now what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Because trophies don't last forever. The applause doesn't last forever. Like, so you got to have something more than just a target.
Right.
So
it just makes so much more sense to be, set a goal if you must, but also like find some genuine peace of mind or joy within the process, because that's your day to day. That's the non-sexy stuff. That's life, And if you get to your goals, give yourself a celebrate, like enjoy
right.
it. That's a great thing. But recognize that it's your lifestyle and it's part of a process and it's part of growth. I would love to believe that all of us wants to grow as well, and I don't know if everybody wants to. Most people that I encounter that come to me do, and I'm super grateful for the caliber of people that come to me. I really, really am. And I can't speak for others, obviously, as I'm not doing what they do, but I just know what I see out there a lot.
Right.
And a lot of it is that kind of stuff.
So, and just to be clear, I don't think there's anything wrong with goals because those motivate people. But I think if a person's self-worth or happiness is not from within, if it doesn't come from inside, the goal's not going to give that to them, is all I was trying to say with that.
Yep. I hear you. Yep. For sure.
So what do you mentioned something that I thought was interesting in our email exchange about taking the ego out of training or out of fitness. Can you dive into that a little bit?
Yeah. I think if someone was like looking from outside the window in at a group training session of mine, people would sort of laugh, because like the training environment is let's just use group training for instance. Everybody is always so encouraging. Like everybody's recognizes that we're all at different levels, and maybe your best tonight wasn't your best as last week, and everybody's kind of on their own journey. But it's an ego-free, an agenda-free environment, where you just focus on your process. When you are resting, maybe you're talking to another group participant, genuinely listening to them, and just being kind of good people, being a part of a positive community. It doesn't seem like it's the norm. I just keep hearing all these other sort of experiences at big commercial gyms that, unless if you're a woman, you're getting hit on all the time, or you got guys smashing weights down. And I've dropped weights before. It's not an issue, especially if you're doing a PR or anything like that. But there seems to be we seem to like want to develop this big superficial exterior. I don't know, because we don't want the outside world in. Like we don't we don't want to get messed with, or like it just, I don't know, man. I think the industry has a lot of problems in it from my perspective. But
So you're talking, I would, it sounds like almost like an authentic training environment, where a person is free to be themselves without having to put on a show or a false facade or something like that.
right, and I don't know if that's so much created. I think my clients would probably say that it's created, or at least I help foster that. But we write the workout down on the board, explain it. I'm coaching them. We're shooting the shit between rest periods. Like, don't get me wrong, my folks work really really hard, but it's not uncommon for them to be having conversations with their peers, having a laugh, venting about their day, and just being like genuine and happy to be there. And it's a positive thing. And it's all about the long run, right? They're not talking about, oh, next month I have to get my 2 inches on my biceps or anything like that. And I'm not trying to bash bodybuilding. I actually have a lot of respect for the people who do that and develop their bodies. But when you get fixated on like small things like that, it's hard for me to believe that. I got to be careful what I say here. I think there's a healthier approach to training, and I
Right.
don't think that's the most common in a lot of gym environments.
So I would say the only way to have, I think you do create that environment, but I think it's you do it through safety. Like if 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 your clients feel safe, then
Mm,
there's no need to do put on the show, or they can relax and be themselves, and they're there for themselves, but they're also there. They don't they help they encourage other people, and everybody is they're in it together, I guess.
yeah,
You're creating a community of people that
yeah,
feel safe, that want to improve their lives and grow stronger. Like real strength though, it's not like necessarily a vanity strength. It's a to improve their life and make it better strength, I would guess.
right, exactly. And I think most people, they have a little bit of a desire to improve like a body composition, or like a little bit of a slightly more of a superficial goal. I know I have those still as well, but the general feel is like, someone will come in and maybe they're really not in the mood originally, and then midway through their whole attitude changes, and then they never regret coming. They
Right.
always leave smiling. They always leave thanking, and like that alone, it from from going from corrections to having guys being like, I'm gonna kill you, to like now clients being like, thanks so much. Like, eh, it's a big step in the right direction for me anyway.
So why do you think they leave smiling? Like what creates that?
I think people just it's an outlet for one. Like you guys, you do this so well, but like I really try to get them moving in many different directions while still working on the strength, and giving them a little bit of, we do dumbbell bench press and stuff. So giving them a little bit of sort of what's traditional, so to speak. Um, so that the movement stuff as an outlet, the sweat, the training, venting with their peers, laughing a bit, being a part of the community, but just the magic that is exercise. They leave, they thoroughly got worked. They never get injured, and they're a part of the process. They come in weekly. It's that same group, and everybody's on the same page. Everybody wants everybody to succeed, and that's very very apparent. No one there's just there's no ego. I hope I'm describing that as accurate as possible. Ego free training environment. That seems to make sense to me. But
I'm with you.
yeah,
It resonates with me.
good, cool.
You you mentioned something else though. Also when we first started chatting about everything's going to be okay mindset.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
um, there's a I'll use the word. I just use the word faith and having faith. I guess you could also say being positive or being positive by nature, and just, not in a cheesy way, but like really trying to look on the bright side of things, like try to find that silver lining, and think of things that, things happen for a reason, and this and that. I would like to, I would, I would love it for people to welcome a bit more of a positive mindset and that faith alongside their training, because really it's all the same thing. Like, we're trying to get stronger physically, stronger mentally. We want to live just a healthier life. Like, my big thing is strong, confident, capable, kind, compassionate, happy. I want everybody to be living happier. I don't really, I think someone else said it like, oh, if you can bench press 500 pounds, but you're miserable and you're a prick, I don't know if it means much. It's good for you for benching 500. Like, congrats. It is impressive. But the rest of this stuff, like, there's more to it, right? Like, you can be living up here as opposed to just up here in the gym, right? So I think having a positive mindset and some type of faith, even if it's in like traditional religion or wherever you find the structure, the guidance, the faith, like the safety blanket, wherever you can find that, I think it's important. And I don't I don't lead with conversations like that with new clients coming in, right? But I think as a part of the community and everything, you try to sprinkle in. You just kind of lead by example, right? That's kind of all you can do, all I can do anyway.
So I was just about to ask you how you foster faith in fitness training.
I walked into that one. I don't know. Other than I think people can smell if somebody's BSing them pretty accurately, and I try to lead by example. I try to wear my heart on my sleeve, and even if that means I get the short end of the stick the odd time, or if I seem to be a little vulnerable here and there, I think by doing that and doing that consistently, it contributes to that sort of safetiness, and hopefully they'll take certain characteristics and they can run with that too into their own life. But other than leading by example, I have no idea.
All right.
It's so far,
So for your own training then, how does faith play a part in your training?
I start thinking about the long run all the time now. I go, it's never about short-term goals. I just think about longevity and doing it as the process. And let's say you have a really bad training day, which happens from time to time for me. It's, you felt like garbage, lifted poorly, and nothing's feeling right. Well, I know that tomorrow's a new day, and I know tomorrow will be okay. So, and I think once you've sort of lived that, and you just know that is the fact. Like, there's a new opportunity tomorrow. In 8 hours from now, I have a brand new opportunity, and like, I think that's the mentality that would be just so powerful for people. Like, don't beat yourself up. It's okay. It's fine. This was one day out of 365. There's going to be a whole lot better, more better ones coming to you. And I would do, I meditate, and that takes many different forms. Sometimes it's just long walks in the woods. Sometimes it's talking to myself, closed eyes, deep breathing, that kind of stuff. And I grew up Catholic with my family. So in the earlier days, it did take the form of traditional prayer. And as I sort of grew up, it evolved a little bit. But I have a belief of something is looking over us, telling us that it's going to be okay. And I hope the listeners aren't rolling their eyes, but that is how I feel about it.
No, it's interesting. Like, so faith in fitness, it comes up on almost every episode we've done in some form. So it's always fascinating to me that that it continues to come up as well, because I think it plays such a huge part in the overall health of the person.
It,
Um, because so if the body is however you want to say it, spirit, soul, and body, well, they all dance together. And if the body's healthy, well, the emotions and the mind is healthy, and the spirit's healthy. Or if you have faith that the spirit is strong and it's in you, it's with you, it's guiding you, well, then the body just kind of follows along with that belief and that faith as well.
Mhm.
I don't know, it just I think it greatly helps a person's overall total health package, or however you want to say it.
For sure. I grew up with, I have a martial arts background and did boxing and this and that. But from a young age, I was in karate, and they always spoke about that, like mind, body, spirit. So even if somebody like didn't necessarily have a faith, like it's still a thing. It's still a part. It's the essence. It's the,
The essence.
it's the essence. That's what it is. And I think when you can hopefully develop that, or amplify that, people would realize that, oh man, I am accomplishing my goals. So like it all feeds the other, right? And then the process isn't so like tedious or uphill battle, so to speak. When you have that, it just fuels you. It's that extra battery charge for you. And whether we call it faith or mindset or whatever, it's important. And I think it's a big part that's, if anything could be improved, like in the industry or in certain approaches, that would be a big help. I don't know of how many people would buy into it immediately. Maybe you got to establish a lot of trust first. I don't know, but that's a bit of a missing link, I think. So.
Yeah, no, it's huge. Have you discovered that? Because you mentioned meditation a little bit. Have you discovered, or have you come to a point where sometimes when you're in your own training, or whatever your movement, that actually becomes a moving meditation, where like it actually nourishes your spirit as you're doing it?
Oh, interesting. I don't know if I quite understand what you're asking, but I do. I'll just respond this way, because I referred to it before. Sometimes for me it takes the form of walking. I
Yes.
love walking, especially nature walks. And all I know is that if there's one action that I can take that can almost immediately turn my entire mood around, it would be a walk in the woods, like a fairly brisk type walk in the woods. And it seems to just resurge and energy flow throughout me, and it's like a tonic. It's like a tonic
Yes.
for everything. So I guess yes is my answer.
No, so I was wondering, because to me, walking is probably the greatest example, or the lowest hanging fruit of that, because you're out in creation, you're a part of creation, your
Yeah.
senses, everything, your senses get to take it all in.
Mhm.
And that can be so soothing to the soul. But even like, and I've never trained with you. I got a feeling we do a lot of similar things though. But like, so if I'm just rolling around on the floor though with my eyes closed for 10 minutes, that can also be like such a tonic, where I just feel so amazing when I'm done. Like it's like a moving meditation almost.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting. I think I'll have to start experimenting with that. It's ironic. The rolling is the one reset that I slack on, and I shouldn't, because it's awesome. I love it, but I'm all about the crawls, marching, and even like side steps and multi-directional crawls, and even like front tumbles, all the groundwork. But I think I'm going to try close my eyes and do some crawls in a safe space kind of thing. But
Right, right.
to give that a shot, I think it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, and you can so you can play with that. You can do it in silence with no music, or you can cut on some like just really like soothing instrumental music and stuff, and
Mhm.
just roll with it with your eyes closed and just really dial into what your body's feeling, what your joints are doing, how your joints feel. Can you actually visually in your imagination see your vertebrae rotate one at a time when you roll? Like you can just so plug in if you but you become so aware that you just dive so much in that when you're done, man, it's like
Yeah.
it's really a neat experience.
Well, I guess so. Do you have you ever practiced yoga in a traditional sense at all, or is that something that you sort of?
I have been exposed to yoga, so I hesitate on the word saying yes that I have in a traditional sense because I'm learning that yoga is so much more than the American exercise yoga. Um, so I've done American yoga as exercise in yoga sessions, but I don't know that I would not. I hesitate to say that that's true yoga.
Fair enough. That's basically the perfect answer there. um, I feel from my limited understanding and experience with it, but I feel like I'm trying to take the things that make sense, the physical things that make sense with yoga, and I'm trying to inject it into my training. And I'm
Right.
trying to make it as seamless as possible. And not to toot my own horn, but I really think I'm doing a pretty good job with it because all of those reasons that we've been talking about before, right? Um, so it is a physical thing, yes, but there's like definitely a spiritual side. There's like a genuine side, and I think the crazy thing is like the yogis really get it. Like they get the movement based stuff, um, but there's enough resistance sometimes to crawls and these other movements that are so deceiving. Like they're not. You don't think that they're going to be hard, but then when people are doing it, they're like, "Wow, that's really challenging." I'm like, "Yes, it is. Do it." So yeah, it's just interesting stuff.
So what like I said, I've learned so much more, especially in the last year or two about yoga, is like the word yoga means union.
Okay.
Um, so like the idea of being in union with the creator, the universe, the life energy or whatever, like that's like so I am in love with that idea. So now so to me that has nothing to do with what the American version of yoga is in a health club or a fitness, class or something like that.
Yeah.
Hey, so I got a question. You said you had written some books. What are your books?
Yeah. My first one is called the Strength Solution Method. I wrote it in 2014. It's a little bit of my story. It's a little bit or a lot of training. A little bit of on nutrition. So it's kind of like a training manual, but also mixed in with parts of my story, parts of my philosophy, and just genuine healthy tips and whatnot. The tagline is a gimmick-free approach to an empowered life.
Oh, I
So
like that.
it's a big mouthful.
I like it though. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
good. And then so my second one's called Impact, and you might think this is kind of cool. The reason I called it that is because I heard a conversation with Dan John and Pavel, and I guess Pavel had asked him, "What's the impact of a strength coach?" Or no, what's the role of a strength coach? And then he said, "Well, I coach strength." And he goes, "What's the impact of a strength coach?" And when I heard Dan John talk, he said, "Yeah, it took me 4 years to try to figure that one out." And I was like, inspiration for my next book right there. So literally that line was exactly what got me writing for the second one. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it's pretty
So
cool.
where can people find those books at?
Well, currently on my website, so it's strengthcoachshawn.com.
So I'll provide the links for people if they want to check those out
Sure,
in the
sure.
notes.
Yeah, I can get you those for sure.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, Shawn, thanks so much for being on the show. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, Tim. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, guys, thanks so much for listening. We will talk to you next time on the OS Podcast. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of the Original Strength Podcast. If you made it this far, thank you so much.